Right. Hey, scholars. Hope you're having a great day. I'm actually with the fifth graders at our fifth grade picnic. You may remember it way back in the day. So today is going to be an asynchronous lesson. It's going to feel exactly like our regular art classes. You'll just work along with this computer instead. So what is our goal for today? Today, by the end of class, we should be like polishing and perfecting our seeing skills, meaning looking, paying attention to, and then redrawing what we see with our knowledge of like organic, natural shapes, specifically the shapes of the face, to practice sketching those realistic proportions of a human, just so we can have like a little bit of extra practice for our hybrid portraits. Even though ours are going to be a little bit more abstracted, a little bit more simplified into lines and shapes and colors, textures, very painterly, practice makes permanent, right? So the more that you practice how to create human proportions by mapping out all the little sizes compared to the whole face, the more successful and confident you're going to feel. So please remember, guys, just work with integrity, follow those studio expectations, even though I'm not there. Show up with integrity, right? So you can be as productive as possible and get that practice in. Again, practice makes permanent. We're going to review the rule of proportion. We talked about it a little bit, but this is actually just a review from your sixth grade lesson and just how you actually use proportion to map out those realistic shapes of our portraits. And then for the rest of class, you're just going to be working and practicing in your sketchbook because practice makes permanent. I'm going to say that as many times as possible because it's true for everything that you do. So you're going to practice sketching a portrait in proportion along with practicing just the organic shapes of our hairstyles. I'm having you practice the shape of the hair because so many times when we're like beginner creators, we want to like draw every strand instead of the contour of the whole shape. So that's really what we're going to be zoning in yet. Not sure if you're going to have an exit ticket or not. I haven't decided yet, but it'll definitely say on the screen and the substitute will tell you if you do have an exit ticket. All right, let's get started. Make sure that you have your sketchbooks out. You have a pencil ready. And we're going to take 1 minute at a zone 0 to just answer these prompts on our sketchbook. All right, so 1 minute. Let me set my timer. You're not writing the whole sentence. You are just filling in the blank. Okay, so number 1, shape. What is it? It's defined as a 2D flat blank. Think about in math, when you have length times width, you're trying to find the what. That's what defines a shape. Number 2, I think I just told you the answer. Name the 2 dimensions of a shape. Blank times blank. Hint, hint, hint. Quick little review. Name these shapes. Very natural, free form, not precise at all. And then number 4, name these shapes. Very mathematical, very precise. Think about that math connection. Take about 11 more seconds. You should be writing this little fluency check in your sketchbook. Okay, that's our timer. All right, guys, shape is defined as a 2D flat area. We're going to be painting in areas. That could be just a regular area or an area with an outline. So keep in mind, yes, you use lines to create areas. 2 dimensions of a shape, I already said it, length and width, also known as height. Number 3, those are organic shapes. The shape of our hair is very organic. The shape of the animal parts of our hybrid, like ears or the nose or the fur, all those shapes are very organic. They shouldn't look like perfect. Number 4, geometric shapes. Can you use geometric shapes within your portrait? Yeah, think about the shape of the iris of the eye. Or if you want to add some like abstract shape patterns to your background, You can totally use geometric shapes too. All right. Go ahead and just divide up that sketchbook so we can do some writing and some drawing. Okay, the first thing you're going to write down is portrait. Let's get the definition of this because we're making portraits, we're making hybrid portraits. So when the subject matter or the topic of an artwork is a person, that is called a portrait, not a landscape, not a still life, it is a portrait. As you can see here, this is a presidential painting, the official presidential painting. I believe it was painted by Kehinde Wiley. Very representational, very realistic. It looks like former President Obama. Now, the portrait over here, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, still has realistic proportions, but as you can see, the shapes are a little bit more simplified, so it's a little bit more abstracted. Anytime when something like super, super realistic is simplified into like basic lines and shapes and colors, we call that abstracted. So hopefully you drew just a little picture of a face of a person. Okay, let's copy down the definition of proportion. Proportion is one of our principles of really good design. Artists use proportion just to pay attention that all the little small parts actually relate to the whole thing. So if we're doing a realistic, even like a semi-abstracted portrait, we don't want our eyes to be too big and the nose too small, right? Or the mouth all the way down here, or your ears like up here. We have these guidelines, these rule guidelines, just to ensure that all sizes are related to the whole head. Make sure you're copying that down. You're going to practice these proportion guidelines in the next part. By the way, feel free to pause this video anytime you need to. You can always rewind it if you miss something. You take care of you. All right, guys. So if you ever want to create a portrait that looks realistic or somewhat realistic, you gotta follow the rule of proportion. So on the next page, actually, before we start that, let's do a little check for understanding. Is this portrait in proportion or out of proportion? Okay, we have a self-portrait by Leonardo da Vinci. In proportion or out of proportion? Let's look. At the whole head, eye line in the middle, nose line in the middle between the eye and where we assume his chin, this kind of little shadowed area ends. The mouth is in between the nose and the chin. Awesome. Yeah, I would definitely say that that portrait, it's representational. It's definitely sketched in proportion. That is a hand drawing. Really, really cool. Da Vinci. Okay, we got some manga slash anime. Is it in proportion or out of proportion? If you thought to yourself, it's out of proportion because let's look at this. The ears are down at the bottom of her cheeks. That's not where our ears stop, right? They're not down here. They're not up here. They're right in the middle. Also, if you notice, the proportion of the eyes are exaggerated. They're a lot bigger. And honestly, you see this style in a lot of anime slash manga style artwork to really enlarge the eyes. But it's not in proportion. You can see that the nose too close to the eyes, the mouth too close to the eyes, just out of proportion. Love the shape of the hair though. Do y'all see the lighter values, the medium values, and the darker values of blue? Still using those art elements. All right. Yep, I just stamped it right there. Manga and anime artists usually create their faces out of proportion, increasing the scale of the eyes. We're not going to work like that today. Instead, we're going to learn the rules and practice the rules of mapping out the face so they can look realistic. I will say though, before we start this again is just practice. I want you to feel confident in your process of like using portraiture because portraiture can be like really overwhelming sometimes. I totally understand that. I feel the same way. So the more we practice and remember where those proportion eye lines, no lines, mouth lines, all where all those go, the more confident we're going to feel. Shout out to those of you that already like remembered how to use those proportion guidelines in your pre-assessment when we started. So really nice job. We're still going to practice along with it. Okay, guys, so you're just going to, on the next open page, you're just going to practice those proportion guidelines along with the video tutorial. Remember to sketch super light at first, and then you can always darken it when you know that shape, that proportion is right. So it'll be kind of like this. I don't know if you guys can see. Practice a couple different faces, different hairstyles in proportion. All right, even make sure that you practice with the video up at the top. It's the only way, guys, that we're going to be able to like learn how to trust ourselves, and that's just through practice. So let's watch, let's draw along. Again, if you feel like you need to pause, rewind, you missed something, this does move pretty quick, please do that. You should be wearing your headphones anyway. So you're just working along with the video. All right, let's go.
Me show you some simple ways you can draw the features of the head and not be bogged down with getting them realistic and stuff. So let's start with the eyes, okay? So of course, when I say the features, I'm referring to the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the ear, okay? Now, we have to, well, I feel it's useful to help you to focus on proportions. Let's just have a simplified way of drawing the eyes. So for example, notice what I'm doing here. I'm just drawing shape like that. I like that. So whenever I'm drawing the eyes, this is the simple way I'm going to use. Okay, so this will be pretty bold. I'm focusing on the top, the upper lid, and we'll have the iris like that. So, and that will be it. We're keeping everything simple, okay? So basically, shape like that. And that's it. So whenever we're drawing the eye, that's all we're going to use, okay? As far as the nose, we can just use a simple V shape, an open V shape like that. Or if you want to, push the realism a little bit, you can have a open form like this. It's always good to establish a midline. Line like that. That's fine. Okay? You can even put a little, if you want like that. Okay? So you can have a V like that. It can be open. It can be narrow. Whatever. Okay? Or you can do it like this. You can have a shape like this. Okay, that's just a simplified version of the nose. We're not necessarily going to draw the bridge of the nose. You can just have the base like that, and then we may have something like this at the top. And that's it. Okay, we're not focusing on spending too much time on this. We want to get proportions. And then for the lips, it's simple also. See, notice I always establish my limits, outer limits, establish a little midline. Those lines are very important when drawing. Okay, establish outer limits and midpoint. Okay, now for the lips, we're using in my drawing book, I refer to this as a line of balance. I use it a lot because I see it everywhere. It's omnipresent in nature. Okay, so like with the lips, you just draw a line like that just to establish the limits. One line like that, one line like that, and then you just put an M at the top. And then at the bottom, you could just have something like that. And that's it for the lips, okay? Simple little line like that, simple line like that. Mark the corners of the mouth, a little M at the top, and like that. Notice I like leaving the forms open. It's important to do that because it strengthens your sense of three-dimensionality. Organic forms are generally open. The ear is open because it's attached to the larger mass of the head. The nose, the lips, same thing. The eyes. Try practicing to leaving your forms open, okay? It gives you a sense of the larger underlying mass that they're attached to or merged or fused in, okay? And what's next? Oh, the ear. So as far as the ear, another form that's another shape that's useful to have in mind is the egg. Okay, I use it a lot as well. So like with the ear, you can think of it as like an open egg form, something like that. And to simplify it, we're just going to do like this. All right. That's for the side ear. Or if you want to push the realism a little bit, all right, you can do something like, it's almost like having a bulb like that. See? So you're going to do like this. See that? So you're going to do like this. And then that. Okay? So let's do it again. Have something like this. Like that. Let's do another one. So you do like this. Okay? Simple. You practice and practice until you get it right. Or as I said, you can just simply do like this. Okay? Now, so basically we just simplify the ear, the lips, the nose, the eye. That's what we're going to be using as we go forward. Now, let's begin. So, these proportions are important for you to memorize. And that's why I'm only going to do a front view and a profile view. A front view and a side view. And I believe you should practice this over and over and over and over again until you can memorize it. It should be fixed in your memory, okay? Practice this over and over, drawing the head over and over and over again until this is fixed. A front view and a side view. Now, I'm basically going to be only focusing on drawing the face or the head in a front view and in a side view. Okay, and you're going to practice this over and over. As far as like the 3/4 view, we're not going to adjust that yet. We're going to adjust that later as the series goes along, because here this is going to be addressing different aspects of structure. Okay, and we could address this right now, but I don't want to. I feel like it's important to just get a basic, simple aspect of proportions of the head down. And then you can practice this and then expand on it. I believe that's the best way to learn. You start with the basics and gradually develop your learning. Okay? You don't learn to wheelie before you start riding a bike. You don't learn to run before you learn to walk. Okay? So practice the basics and have it down, and then you can move forward. All right, now, so I'm going to do the front view. So notice the first thing I always do is establish my limits, okay? Top and bottom, all right? Now, it's important to understand that with your proportions, see, I'm establishing a vertical line here, a vertical line. Now, there are no necessarily right or wrong proportions. Okay, don't let anyone think, oh, that's not correct. That's not the point of learning proportions. Proportions is not to say you're drawing an exact head or an exact this, or this is how a head always is. No. What you're doing is you are establishing a model. You're establishing a model to use that you can apply and adjust based on the situation. Not everyone doesn't share the same proportions, and that's why you use a model. So this way, when you're drawing someone, this is how you capture likeness. If you're drawing someone, right, and you say, wow, this person's eyes are kind of wider. In other words, when you look at someone and say, wow, you have big hands, what you're really saying is you have larger hands than normal. You see what I'm saying? If you don't know what a normal size hand is, you won't be able to recognize a big hand or a small hand. So basically what you're identifying is proportions. You're saying, based on what I've observed or I know to be normal proportions, your hands are disproportionately large. That's what you're saying. So what's the most important general measurement to know? The half point between the top of the head, and I'll establish what the top of the head means in a little bit. The top of the head and the base of the chin, midline, and I've noticed I'm judging my measurements here, so don't judge me if it's not exactly correct. I know someone may be looking at their computer screen like, hey, that's not Alfonso, I'm just judging or eyeing my measurements here. So the eyes are halfway or half the length of the head. So from the top of the head to the base of the chin, the eyes fall halfway in between. Something I usually practice, I should point out, is when I usually practice proportions, I usually draw the half of the face only and not draw the entire head. So I can just focus, because if you draw one half, you can draw the other half. So instead of focusing on both, I would just draw one half. But I'm going to draw both sides just for example's sake, okay? So the first thing we want to establish is the half line. This line is very, very, very important because we're talking about where the eyes are, okay? Now, of course, I'm sure another basic proportion that you're familiar with is that the eyes are generally an eye apart. Of course, you're gonna find people with eyes that are further apart and some that are closer together. But for practice sake, for establishing your model, you're gonna have the eyes are halfway or an eye apart. So basically, the distance between the eyes is one eye. So there I've established it. Now, another thing you'll notice that I'll do is a system that it's very important to practice as well. And it's called, basically I call it like I call it my 3M method. You measure, you mark, and you make a line. Okay, you measure, you mark, and make a line. So for example, that's what I'm doing here. I measure the upper and lower limits. Then I measure the half point, make a mark, and then I make a line. Same thing here. See, I'm marking where I believe the eyes are. Okay? So now, as I said, we're going to be making a first eye here. So I'm just drawing a general shape. This is called for me, I use it like a placeholder. Very light, arbitrary shape, just a little oval. I'm not going to draw the eye. That's just to hold it in place. That's to identify the place. Okay. So what we've established so far, we've established the half point. The eyes are halfway, are found along the vertical mid line of the head. Now I established the eyes. Eyes are one eye apart. Okay. Now this is something that I use a lot. Now the eyes can be divided, an eye can be divided in thirds. I consider the iris to be a third of the width of the eye. All right. So here we have the outer limits and we have thirds, just like that. Okay. And also I go a step further and I say, well, I believe the iris is also a third. The pupil is a third of the iris. Like that. Now, of course, you're going to identify people in a particular pose where the pupils may be dilated. They may be wider than a third. So it doesn't mean you say, oh, no, this person is, no, that's how you identify that person's pupils are dilated, because you know what the normal or regular or model size of the pupil is. You get what I'm saying? So that's what you're doing. So you may start establishing the eye, and as I said, we're just going to use something simple like this. So I do like this. There we go. All right. Now, and this is how you can make sure both your eyes are symmetrical, by using this third principle, because I've seen people do drawings and one iris is looking this way and the other iris is looking that way. Okay, so by having this set of model proportions, you can make sure that you're getting both eyes symmetrical. Now, another measurement that I use is I consider the width of the eye and half point. Now, I look at this is my system. Okay, the eyebrow is generally like one eye up. So imagine like I sketch another eye right above it, and that will mark where I put the eyebrows. And the eyebrow starts in line with the eye like that and goes outward about half of an eye width. So this is the midline of the eye, all right? And then I say, okay, a half point is like this. So this is the half distance of an eye. And the eyebrows go out like that. So half is out here, and it goes out like that. Okay? Now, one eye wider. So now we have one eye 2 eyes, 3 eyes, 4 eyes, 5 eyes. Okay, so this is going to mark the width of the head. Now, an important thing to mention right here about the head is that the head is shaped, it's large at the top and narrow at the bottom. So almost like a pentagon, like that. So the width, the maximum width of the head is at the temple, like somewhere around here. Okay, so basically the head actually goes out like that. Now, this is something that I have used in my system. Now, see the distance from here to here? If you swing this down, you'll get where the nose is. But instead of, you can do that when you're drawing from one feature to the other. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so we've established the eye. We've established where the eyebrows end, which is a half eye out, right? Now, we're going to establish where the base of the nose is. Now, how do we establish the base of the nose? Once you've established the base of the chin and you have the eyebrows, you know this line is now called the brow line, the eyebrow line, right? Now, how do you establish where the nose begins? Well, the base of the nose is halfway between the brow line and the chin line. So let's judge it. Let's say it's here. Like that. Okay. Now, if I didn't have the chin, what I normally do is use this distance and swing it around. So I say from here, from the root of the nose to the base of the nose is the same thing as from the root of the nose to where the eyebrow ends. That's my model. That's what I use. Of course, you may measure and say, hey, that's not it. That's not the point. I use that as my base measurement to make my model head. Okay. Now, another thing that's important is identifying the width of the nose. Now, it's very popular, this set of proportions where the width of the nose is the same as the distance between the eyes. So basically, a lot of people generally assume the width of the nose is 1 eye wide. Okay, that's why the eyes are so important. You can use them as a unit or reference unit to measure everything else. And it's important to be able to do that, because that way, by having one part of the head be your reference unit, it means you can start drawing the head from anywhere, because you already have a sense of measurement in your head. So you can basically start, I can draw the head from the lips up if I want, or from the nose out if I want, or from the eyes down and up if I want. I can start drawing the head from the ear if I want, because I have a system of measurement that I use to refer everything to everything else. Is the nose really 1 eye apart? Not necessarily. In most people, it is wider. However, it is good to have that as a model. So that way you can say, okay, this person has a very narrow nose. How do you know that? Because you're keeping in mind your model. Oh, this person has a wider nose. Oh, that's because you're using your model. Okay, so it's fine to say, okay, the nose is an eye apart. So that means by having this model in your mind, when you see a subject, you say, whoa, this person has a wider nose than usual. Oh, this person has a narrower nose than usual. Oh, this person, and you'll notice, of course, like with different racial groups, some people have wider noses. That's just common in some groups. And some people have narrow noses. So this enables you to have a model that you can apply and keep in mind the different differences that you identify in the subject you're drawing. Okay. Or if you're drawing a subject from imagination, you'll be aware of how to make adjustments. Okay. So I'm going to establish the width of the nose, just like that. Now, I'm going to do our little thing here, just like I mentioned up here with the nose. Just like that. Now, I can use this distance, and to establish the bridge of the nose, I'm going to divide this into thirds as well. See? And that's enough. That's all I'm going to use to establish that. Now let's go to the lips. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see this. Now, as far as the lips are concerned, what I found from my measurement is the half point between the base of the nose and the chin, this line, does not mark the line between the lips, but it marks the bottom lip. what I found is the line between the lips is generally between a third. This is a third, and this is half point. Okay, third, half point. I found that the line between the lips is generally either like a third or some way between a third and the half point, but never here. Now, so I usually just commit to one. I just say, okay, it's the third, okay, because the half point is generally where the bottom of the lip is, or the half point lies right on the bottom lip. So I just use the third as a way of finding or identifying where the line between the lips will be. Now, what about the length or the width of the lips? Now, generally, this is a popular proportion, and I find it to be true. If you draw a line directly down from the inner edge of the iris down like that, inner edge down like that, that establishes the width of the lips. So for example, if I'm using the third, it will be like that. So I draw a line and that establishes it. So in essence, in terms of eye measurement, the width of the line between the lips is really like one eye, third, an eye and two thirds, or say 1.5 eyes. Okay, simplify it for yourself's sake. Now, of course, just like I said, we're using this system. Where is it? For the lips, you draw the line, 2 lines of balance right here, and then an M at the top. So it's important you have your upper and lower limits, as I said, and then midpoint. Always do that. Upper and lower limits and midpoint. Upper and lower limits and midpoint. Upper and lower and midpoint. See? And then from here, it's just a matter of one line like that, one line like that. See, the corners of the mouth are generally deep in value, like that. And then you have an M at the top. And then you can have, and that's it. All right? And then there's a little shadow under the lips because the lips actually project out, the mouth projects out. Then we have the chin. Now, what do I normally use for the chin? I align the chin with the width of the chin with the width of the nose. So the nose is here. The chin normally is right here. So that marks the chin for me. The curves up, beginning right there. Curves up, beginning right there. Of course, you're going to have people where the chin is more pointy. You're going to have people where the chin is wider. But by having this reference, this model, you'll be able to say, wow, that person has a wide chin, because the chin is not the same as the width of the nose. It's wider. Oh, this person has a narrow chin. The chin is actually much thinner than the width of the nose. See what I mean? You're able to identify nuances in different subjects that you're drawing based on that. Now, going back to here, we're going to connect the chin to here because we're going to start shaping out the face now. Okay? Of course, people have different widths in their chin, in their face. Okay? So, the width of the face can be different based on how skinny someone is, or how full figured the person is, whatever. But you have to remember that proportions are based on the skull. The skull determines the basic relationships of the features. Regardless of however overweight someone becomes, the proportions are the same. Okay, so the relationship between the eyes will remain the same. If someone gains weight, their eyes don't drift apart because the skull is the same. Okay, body tissue becomes larger, but the skull size and skull relationship, skull structure remains the same. So the features remain the same. Now, with that said, here we have established, notice I'm not drawing the ear yet because I haven't drawn the width of the faces yet. So now we're going to start establishing the width of the face. Now, where's the widest point on the face that normally occurs? For me, I find that, see the line between the eyes? Just close to where the root of the nose is, where the nose begins to project. And the base of the nose, I usually find that the widest point of the face begins halfway between the nose, the base of the nose, and the eye line. So the width, the maximum or the widest point of the face occurs on this line. Now, see, notice this mark. We haven't began going back to this yet. You have the eye, and then you have one eye out. See, one eye out, and here I have a half eye out. See, one eye, another eye. Half eye out marks where the eyebrows end, and then like halfway between, like here, then I go out a little bit to here. See, so I'll put a dot there. Put a dot here. So that marks the widest point of the face. And then from here, we're going to slingshot in. Now, there's going to be a corner point here. It goes out, then it goes in, and then it goes in again. Okay? And where does it go in again? They're going to have a point, the jawline. The jawline occurs generally close to the lower lip. So here we're going to have another line out right here. So basically, you're going to have something like this. And then it shifts direction here and go in. See that? It goes out, then up, and then in. See that? Then from here, it goes up. Like that. Now, of course, as I said, this is the width of the head. But this doesn't show why, and you're going to see in a second. Now that I've established the outline of the face, now you can have the ear put in. The ear is generally, of course, between the brow line and the base of the nose. So the ear is normally found between these guys. So the ear is normally somewhere in here. Now, as I said, these are general proportions, okay? So these are just model proportions. So you can use these as a frame of reference for establishing the head in general, okay? Now, remember you have one eye out, and that normally marks where the width of the head is, because remember it goes out like that. So it generally occurs somewhere here, and then it goes in to the top of the head, okay? Like that. Now, another line that's useful to point out is the hairline, where the hair generally starts growing from. Now, how do we establish that? Well, we have from the chin to the nose, which is assumed to be the same distance, this and this. So this, from here to here, from the chin to the base of the nose is the same as from the base of the nose to the brow line. Now, from the brow line to the hairline is generally the same. So we have established somewhere here. So 1, 2, 3. This is the third, this is a third, and this is a third. And this is a half, and this is a half. From the base to the eyes to the top of the head. Okay? Now, the hairline generally starts here. So basically, if you're drawing, let's say we're going to make this woman, right? So this line, the hair would be somewhere here. And of course, the top of the head is not the top of the hair. The hair would be somewhere up here. So if you're drawing someone, you know, with long hair or whatever. See, now that the hair now goes above the top of the head. This is the top of the head. You see that? But it's good to sketch in where the top of the head is for the skull's sake, so you can feel the skull. Okay? And that's pretty much establishing basic proportions of the head and
All right, guys. So to finish up, if you have time left, the more we practice, the easier like recreating our portrait for our painting is going to be, because you'll know where all the parts kind of belong. If time allows, use your seeing skills and just practice sketching as many different organic hairstyles that you see from this picture on the board. there's a lot of hairstyles on here that match the 8th grade hairstyles. So this is just gonna set us up for success in our second project. Good luck. Make good choices, practice, practice, practice. It'll get so much easier once you practice, and I will see you guys after fall break.